Hey guys, this is Mrs. Mindy, and today I'm going to tell you about DNA structure, which a thing that is very exciting to me, just because it's so cool and it looks neat. I don't know. Okay, so you may know biology was my main focus when I was in grad school. So DNA is it's very deeply meaningful to me, and I hope you enjoy it too. DNA is a double helix, and notice that I have highlighted that term double helix because I really want you to know that for later. Double helix is this shape. Here's DNA shown in three different levels of simplification. So this one up here where you can actually see individual atoms, this is the most realistic, but it's a little hard to see the pattern. You see the overall shape. And then these ones are more simple where you just see this sort of ribbon structure on the outside, which is made of molecules. Um, but let's see what a helix is. A helix is a spiral, like a spring or a curving staircase. So it's like one long thing coiled around. So it's kind of like one pathway, but it looks like a lot of things stacked up. So it's not like pancakes stacked up, though. A double helix is a little bit different. So a double helix has two sides that each spiral around each other. So this is a staircase in Australia. So if you imagine the person walking up one side, there are really two staircases. So this one goes here to here and around like that. The other one, it doesn't connect to it directly. It's like a different pathway. DNA is a double helix, and most people have heard of DNA. RNA is a single helix, and fewer people have heard of that. But they're related molecules. But you can see here DNA, how it looks different. It's a double helix. It has these two kind of spirals that go around, and RNA has one. Both of them are used in your body. DNA is made of four kinds of nucleotides. And notice that nucleotide is highlighted because that's a vocabulary word I want you to know. A nucleotide is a small piece of DNA. It's sort of like the smallest meaningful piece of DNA. And I have this one nucleotide circled. It's kind of half of the ladder rung and a little piece of the side of the ladder. And you can think of DNA as a ladder. If you untwisted it, it would look like that. There are four nucleotide types, and you can see them. They're usually done in different colors so that you can kind of get the idea. The color is not meaningful. The color is different for different models, so it's not always the same color. So don't worry about that. But you do need to worry about knowing the letters. You don't have to know their full names. Their full names are here, and their structures in case you are interested. So it's adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, but you can just know them by A, T, G, and C. Okay, and you don't have to know the structures. It's just to let you know that there are structures. The four nucleotide letters are instructions for making and running your body. So it's instructions for making the stuff and then when to make the stuff also. So, like one part of the DNA, the letters would code for like an eye color, or another part would be for hair color. And for everything else that is happening in your body, there's some DNA that codes for the machinery that does that thing, or the instructions for making that stuff. We'll talk more about that later. Each nucleotide, the A, T, C, and G, it only matches with only one other kind. So you can see that here, A always goes with T, like in all of these, see A goes with T. Whether T comes first or A comes first, it doesn't matter. And then G goes with C, and C with G, like that. So how I remember this is that the A and the T are straight line letters because they're written with straight lines, and the C and the G are curved line letters, so they're made with curved lines. So that's how I remember it, which way they go. And that is important for you to know. That's part of it. DNA can copy itself by pulling apart in the middle and adding the matching nucleotide. So because each nucleotide only matches with one other kind of nucleotide, it can do this. And there are all kinds of little cellular machinery pieces that do all these things, the pulling apart and then the adding of extra nucleotides. But you don't need to know what those are right now. Just know that that happens. Chromosomes, and you may have heard of chromosomes. Chromosomes are DNA that is coiled up to be easy to move during cell division, so during mitosis and meiosis. And I think you may have talked about mitosis before in 7th grade. And this is a human genome, and there are 23 pairs of chromosomes. Okay, so you have 46 separate pieces of DNA in each of your cells. Okay, and so it's like cut into pieces. So it's not all one long piece together, all your DNA. It's 46 separate pieces. If you're thinking about chromosomes, like what it means, what it's for, it's when the DNA is tight and coiled up. So if you think about the DNA as being like yarn, the chromosomes are when the yarn is all balled up into a skein like this, like you would get it in the store. And that's, because you don't want to buy just like a bag of loose yarn, it'll be all tangled up. And the same thing is true of the DNA. You don't want it to be all tangled up. If you wanted to move the chromosomes around, and for cell division, you have to move it around, you want it to be wound up so it doesn't get tangled. So that's the same purpose as yarn being wound up, is that your chromosomes are wound up. In the cells, it looks different too. So this is an actual picture through a microscope of some plant cells, and there are two kinds of, well, it's the same DNA, but it's either wound up into these chromosomes or it's kind of loose and spread out, and it has different names at those different times. So this, when it's bound up like this, it's called chromosomes, and when it's kind of loose and uncoiled, it's called chromatin. Chromatin, even when you see it in the nucleus, it's all loose and uncoiled, so it's not wound up into those skeins or balls like in chromosomes. It's all loose and uncoiled like these ramen noodles. And it kind of looks like these ramen noodles. So just think of it like that. It's all loose, and you can get to each individual noodle now. They're not all bound up. A gene is a relatively short stretch of DNA. It's on the chromosome, but this is like it codes for a certain trait, a certain thing about the organism. And the genes are sort of like the little recipe for that thing. Okay. So if you wanted to make like insulin, which is a thing for helping you use sugar in your body, then there'd be a gene for insulin. If there's something like for your eye color, then melanin for your eye, then there's a gene that is the recipe for making melanin, okay? So it's kind of like that little piece. It's still DNA. You can see the little double helix. It's still DNA, but it's one particular part of the chromosome that codes for a certain thing. It's a recipe for a certain thing. Okay, so thinking about there's all these different names for DNA in your body. So there's the chromosome, and oh, I should have highlighted these because I do expect you to know these words for the DNA and what they mean. So the chromosome is when all the DNA is bound up together tightly and wound up so that it's easy to move around. The chromatin is when it's kind of unwound, loose, and noodly. We'll say more about the structure of this later because it's woven on these little protein spools to kind of keep it from getting tangled even when it's chromatin. And then here's the DNA helix. It's like the double helix. So that's when you can see it twisting around. And then each individual instructions, that's the gene. Okay. So gene, the helix, the chromatin, the chromosome, all of that stuff, you got to know what it means and what the words are. Okay. In case you missed it, here's the vocabulary I expect you to know from this little talk. Okay? DNA, double helix, nucleotide, and not just the names, but like know what these things mean. Okay? The four types A, T, G, and C, chromosome, chromatin, and gene. That's it for today, and I'll talk to you next time.